Guys, talking about Pluto Direct. Just waiting for everybody to show up. Gonna get some things in order, and then we will be starting. Okay. Oh, right, I forgot to write down the timestamps. Oh, thank you. I'm just writing down the timestamps and getting started. What's going on, Beans? Why you need a distraction? Part of the reason I haven't gone live in a while is one, I've been busy. Two, there's nothing to talk about, and three, my channel's been like growing watch time on its own. Playing in the old folks' home. The fuck are you doing in the old folks' home? Alrighty, I'll take your word for it. What else are we talking about today? Oh yeah. Oh, alrighty. Let me get the pinned comment together. Hello. Everybody like and double tap the screen. About to get started. Just drop in the pinned comment and then we'll start talking about it. Double tap the screen. We need more than one like. Come on. I'm not getting started until we got at least 3. Hey Maria, how you doing? Oh, sweet. I guess I gotta get started. 1 second. Yeah, so we're talking about Pluto Direct today. Pluto Direct is a pretty powerful alignment. A lot of things have happened with Pluto Direct in regards to what it actually does. It is very similar. Like, one of the main things of Pluto Direct that I wanted to talk about is how it occurred on 1 second, are we good? Yeah. How it occurred on I believe it was like October 6th of 2023 or whatever the day the whole thing happened. But yeah, it's a pretty powerful planet, and it's a pretty important thing to pay attention to. So 1 second, let me just get this link in here and we're good. Come on, man. Okay, here we go. Now I can pin my little comment. Yeah, so everybody everybody drop the house you have Aquarius in, or your rising sign, or we're gonna be doing all signs reading. Okay. Whatchamacallit? Okay, here we go. Back to studio, back to my notes. All right, sorry about the wait, guys. So essentially what we got going on with Pluto and Aquarius is Pluto went direct in Aquarius at around like 1 degree and 23 minutes of it, which angles the fixed star known as Albireo, which is the head or the neck of the Swan, aka the Cygnus constellation. So when it comes to the Cygnus constellation, essentially what we got going on is I don't know, it's kind of like a beautiful pull of power, a beautiful thing directed, a beautiful opportunity to be, directed in a direction that is, fighting for your rights in a way that you would want to, right? So we're going to save that when we talk about the Pluto direct energy and all of that. Now, when it comes to the aspect of, whatchamacallit, when it comes to the aspect of, thank you, Beans. I was about to get distracted from that. But essentially when it comes to the aspect of the direct energies, people are, things are moving forward, power plays are being made, and essentially a moment when power becomes resonance and revolution becomes refinement. That's essentially what the Swan song is, right? That's what like Cygnus is pushing. So Pluto direct is not just changed, it's evolution turning its face toward the future. And this time it essentially sings, right? So it's an opportunity. It can be beautiful. People can be finally, like having their stride of like what's going on, right? So when we come to the cosmic energy of what Pluto is in a generic sense, dang, what was that? Oh shit. Well, it looks like something that did work. Let's keep it pushing. That noise was someone signing up for my school. And I really like it. And I also like it because I also have another noise where like one of my wallets on my computer, I have like something set up where it's like it gets like recurring payments, and the sound effect for that is like coins dropping, which is always fun. So yeah. I think it was from my TikTok because I started making videos on like, here, this is what I teach in my school. This is a specific training. It's free to try. Sign up, so we got it figured out now. We got it shaken, which is going to be cool. But anyways, back to the cosmic headline for it. So when we talk about Pluto being direct, essentially what it is when Pluto stations direct, everything that's been underground, all of the unconscious restructuring since May, essentially when Pluto was retrograde originally, is being externalized, right? So what is this internal work? We're going to go over it when I do the house-specific readings, which are essentially going to be why I'm saying drop your rising sign. So when it's in Aquarius, essentially what this means is our systems, our technologies, our social dynamics start to reveal what has been fermenting, right? So what have you been brooding on? What type of like social pressures are you pushing towards, right? And then the personal shadow essentially moves into the collective conversation, right? So like what's like an underlying or the undertow of society that's been essentially forcing you to feel some type of way and make these changes, right? So when we talk about that, we have to think about like what occurred, right? So one of the most recent examples is the I'm gonna wait a couple more minutes before we talk about that. But a lot of the things is like, you know, like the more surface level things is like, how is AI gonna take my job? How is what's this general understanding of the collective direction of what we're going towards, right? Like, oh, that Donald Trump, he sure is crazy. Oh, he's playing 4D chess with the tariffs, you know, like all the bullshit like that, right? So essentially, these things add an air of instability, right? And what's kind of resurfacing for people, at least in a higher vibration, is like, you know, I'm alone. I don't know what to believe on the internet, but since I am a scroll bot and I am, you know, on the short term feed, I don't really remember what I watch when I scroll, and my brain is being rewired for short term thinking, right? To make basically any news headline to be believable, right? Like that's the essential thing. So when it comes to Pluto being direct, it's kind of like people are taking a step back from that. Like I'm sure you've seen the headlines about people being like, I don't really like people aren't really resonating with alcohol anymore, you know, and that was there's a lot of reasons behind that, but things like that, right? So when we're dealing with that, a lot of what is beginning to bubble up and resurface is the need or the yearn for community. So the urgency for community, the need for the community, the sense of like, I want to cross reference what I have going on, talk to people, and be a social person again, right? And essentially, people are going to be resonating at the energy of like just being with the people again, right? And kind of gaining strength in numbers. So that's something that's going to be resurfacing, and you may like feel that like subtle bubbling need of like you don't exactly know what you're missing from life, and you just start kind of like hanging out with people, and then you don't really have that feeling anymore, right? It's kind of like dependent. So everything's kind of predicated on resurgence of community and like fighting for what you want, right? Now, another thing that's going to be popping up is the truth starts showing itself through networks, ideas, and innovation. And this is essentially what we're dealing with when we're talking about the energy of community and opportunity and things in that regard, right? Everybody new that hasn't liked the live, double tap the screen for me. Thank you. So yeah, so kind of like this little quote that sort of sums it up is like, these are all the things and the bullet points of what is happening, a lot of things that are going on. And the issue is, this is the nuance, right? This station happens under the influence of Albireo, which is the head or the swan of the neck, and we're going to cover that, right? The beak of the swan, which has a Venus and Mercurial fixed star, all about articulating grace. And essentially, but essentially it's so like the chaos that we're experiencing in our mind that made this like energy ferment is allowing us to experience chaos, but not for chaos's sake, right? It's pushing us to transform and speak elegantly despite what we're going through and what's going on. So when it comes to that and we're dipping our toe into this concept, essentially what we have going on is people are kind of like it's this weird energy of acceptance for it's like, well shit, the world's chaotic, I guess. That's just how it's going to be, you know? And it's going to be a little chaotic basically because, you know, the world power that controls a lot of things on the globe is moving into its like teenage kind of like hissy fit cycle. And over the next like, you know, say like 15 years of election cycles, there's going to be some, you know, revolutionary energies due to the Pluto return and the delayed effect of that manifesting physically. And you got to make a decision of if you want to be here for that or not, right? You know, like personally, this is why I research alternative citizenships and having a passport portfolio and, you know, spending every waking hour finding a source of online income while pursuing a passion of mine to be able to protect myself from these experiences, right? So when we're dealing with this energy of like Pluto and then it also occurring when Venus like entered Libra, it's all about like a fated meeting, powerful connections, and like realigning yourself with a balanced community to support yourself, right? Like, so this is what Pluto in direct in Aquarius is about, essentially. Now let's move on to the fixed star known as Albireo. Alrighty. So, I need water. Oh wait, no, I have my jasmine pearl tea. Fucking fire. Alrighty. So when it comes to Albireo, Albireo is the beak or the head of the Cygnus constellation. The Cygnus constellation is occupied in like early to mid degrees of Aquarius, a little bit of Capricorn, maybe even a dash into Pisces. So it's in that late like fall stage of the signs, right? So when we're talking about Albireo, Albireo is a binary star where one is gold and then the other is sapphire blue, right? So it's a very enlightening sign. It's a very inspirational sign. It's a very opportunistic sign that creates a, you know, a symbol. It's essentially, it symbolizes the union of opposites, which is intellect and heart. I wouldn't necessarily say they're opposites. I would say they are more of like kind of like a square, right? So it's like the crown and the heart chakra is a square essentially. So it's like a learning experience of oh dang, that sucks beans. Well, we're cranking anyways, so I appreciate the effort, but it doesn't seem to be needed if it is that deep of an issue. But anyways, Albireo is kind of like that lesson between the expression of the masculine and the feel of the feminine, which is chaos and order, to put it simply, even though there's a bit more nuance to it, right? So when Pluto aligns here, essentially what we're dealing with is the shadow is becoming symphonic. What is painful becomes purposeful. And then what was secret becomes beautifully articulated, right? And essentially, like, if we're looking at this from a teaching moment perspective, this is the power of Mercury meets Venus, like I said. So Mercury is essentially like, you know, like I said, the thinking, the presentation, and Venus is like that relation and that connection, right? So it's a lot of like people feeling the need to essentially, oh, sorry. No, I got it's not the comment that's distracting me. It's the VOS, which is interesting because I was using that as an acronym to research something in regards to financial astrology because I noticed like a trend in regards to that. And I thought it was very interesting to map out because it gave like a very clear outcome in a specific niche market that I was like, oh, maybe we should pay attention to this. And I was like texting my homie about it, and he was like, dude, we should make an app or like a plugin for this. And I was like, oh, cool. Yeah, 75% of the time, technically, yes, good luck, but not what I'm referring to. Anyways, so when we're talking about this energy of like Mercury meets Venus, essentially what it is like Mercury gives the mind precision. So when we're talking about Pluto direct in Aquarius, it's like what was festering became clear. Venus gives the voice and the resonance. So it's like that added layer of, like, if I had to guess, it's like a 40-60 split between, you know, mercurial and clear in your mind versus actual Venusian, right? So when it comes to Venus, it essentially, you know, gives you that clear focus and need to find your community around what it is that has been festering within you, right? So getting like a clear idea on like, fuck man, this has been really stressful. I don't want to be alone thinking about this anymore. But it's not really like expressed like that. It's like more like a clear focus of like, I'm not going, like, I don't know. It's like a very healthy way to address something that has been festering within you. That is essentially what it is, right? So when we talk about that, it's kind of like giving people that clear, like, I need help. I'm going to talk to people with help, and I feel good about the feeling of actually pursuing this help. That's what it is, right? So essentially they're together, they're turning their transformation into art, which is a beautiful opportunity to essentially just work on that energy and focus on these things, right? Now, when we, I guess when we move on to the collective themes. So when we're dealing with the collective themes, we gotta think about like, what does it mean for everybody? We're putting everybody in the shoes of the whatnots, right? So when we're thinking about revolution with elegance, we're thinking about activism through creativity, not outrage, right? And what I sort of see this is like for everybody that was just straight burning Teslas because they were like fuck Elon, and then still ended up buying that sticker that was probably created by Elon, or David Sachs, where it's just like, I bought this before Elon was crazy type of thing. Yo, dude, long time no see. Essentially people are going to be instead of creating fires in the street, you know, they're going to be more Ginsburging it per se, or they actually put in the effort to, you know, change legislation and actually do something. You know what I'm saying? So yeah. Essentially, the other thing that's going to be happening is rebuilding of communication systems. So it's like how we share truths becomes the revolution, right? So essentially, no, actually, Beans, he DM'd me on Instagram and was like, dude, you haven't gone live, and just like I wasn't showing up in his algorithm, so here he is, you know. I still like want to see proof that you actually live in Monaco. Because like I'm still 50-50 on that. But yeah, anyways, so when it comes to rebuilding communication systems, essentially how we share the truth. Yes, this is what we need in life. But anyways, when it comes to the collective themes of rebuilding communication systems, essentially, a lot of what I just mentioned about like destruction and like fire in the streets is really what has been, you know, a lack of communication, right? And it's like a grown-up hissy fit where you're just rioting and looting and doing all the degenerate things, right? One thing that kind of makes me feel positive about that is my friend sent me a video of one of like the ice raids in like Chicago last night, and like I have to say, like, that's probably not the worst of it, and I'm not educated enough on the issue to really like speak on it, but from what I saw, I was like, that is the most casual masked men trying to arrest somebody I have ever seen in my life. And that is the most casual, like, people filming it and trying to save the dude I have ever seen in my life. And on top of that, it wasn't even an unmarked car. So I was like, if this is what they got to deal with, which I strongly don't think it is, like, that was pretty lax, you know, to put it lightly. So yeah, so people are going to be talking about things anymore. People are going to actually be like, you know, like, we're not standing up for this. There's going to be like actual systems for people to actually follow through on things instead of believing a protest work when we all know it doesn't. Because if we're thinking, like, personally, like how I view protests as people getting enough knowledge on a subject in hopes that someone will eventually do something of tangible substance. That's what it is. Like, it's just like, we're going to be louder. And then, you know, the powers that be are like, you can be as loud as you want, dude. You're not really doing jack shit, so fuck off. You know? So it's kind of like, what are we doing here? Which is going to lead to the next thing that I sort of see for collective themes, which is the rise of resonant leadership. You know, people who speak truth through beauty, not manipulation, to become the next architects, right? So this would be something along the lines that probably, like, I would be surprised it would happen, but if they made some legislative changes in regards to not allowing like Congress people and senators and people of, you know, the federal government to basically to do like stock trades and have basically like giving them a free pass for donations and insider trading and not making it about the money and making it about the people again, which I strongly doubt will actually happen. But, you know, I could see somebody along those lines actually saying those things and having some popularity, and then they're probably going to get, you know, Al Gore or whatever. But the next thing that's going to be happening, which has a lot more tangibility, is cultural refinement, which is technology and spirituality start weaving together, and intellect becomes intuitive again, right? So essentially, Pluto Direct is saying, you've done the shadow work, now speak it into structure. So when we talk about this, technology and spirituality actually weaving itself together, I don't really see that happening until Pluto enters Pisces. But, you know, we got some wishful thinking right now, and it'll probably be the most recent Pluto cycle until Pluto goes retrograde, and then we actually angle Aquila, which is not the Swan, but the eagle that America's energy is actually based on, which is a whole other thing. And essentially what happens with that is, whatchamacallit, one second. Okay, so yeah, like I said, once we kind of hit like that Aquila angle, it's going to get a little bit more violent per se. So yeah, now let's talk about the individual themes. And then I believe after that we're getting into the fixed star reading, so everybody drop your rising sign. I need a, what the hell is going on with this pen? When Pluto enters like 2 or 3 degrees, it angles this star known as Altair. For everybody that's played Assassin's Creed, the character Altair is the exact same energy from that to the star. And Altair is essentially like violence and purpose and the screaming eagle energy, right? Because it's the throat of the eagle or the Aquila constellation. Which is like, you know, it's like Aquila was originally correlated to the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire collapsed and consolidated within the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church lost its power with what's his name and his 99 Theses. And then after that, it was decided to essentially, through a lot of like exploration, it found the quote unquote New World, which is, you know, the Americas. And then it reimplanted its new attempt at restarting its, you know, global organization through the Americas and so on and so forth. So, essentially, one second. Thank you, Beans. No more warnings, Beans. Thank you. Wow, you're reading my mind. Appreciate it. Everybody stay on topic, please. But yeah, so that's basically the cycle of like how these things occurred. Anyways, when we're talking about individual energetics, number one is like if you felt invincible, your presence is beginning to magnetize again, but through authenticity and not force, right? So it's like before Pluto went retrograde, it was like people who felt that, I would say, were dealing with a lot of energies around the Capricorn vibes. So when it comes to the Capricorn vibes, essentially what it is like people based their power on status, and that's where like all the corporate hierarchy happened, and that's why there's like an advent energy of a lot of people in my generation who have Uranus and Neptune and Aquarius are getting triggered in a sense of like we're not dealing with the same corporate hierarchy nonsense that our past generation does, and you know, rights for the worker, right? Personally, there's like a good and bad to that. I see a lot of bad because I think a lot of people overvalue the worker and don't like really understand the level of work that goes into being a business owner. That's besides the point. I sort of see a lot of those people activating their energies of like feeling invincible again, right? Because now you have an opportunity to basically be like, it's easier than ever to start your own business and make money online nowadays, right? The long purpose of that, and you know, the Matrix, blah 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 blah, is that's down the road a little bit, but right now it's cool, you know. So a lot of people are essentially like feeling that magnetic energy again, right? They felt a little down with Pluto retrograde because it was like their power was on hold. They were stuck at like a stagnation point of a new lesson. So that was kind of going on, right? And then this sort of led to people being silent, right? So it's like your truth wants to vibrate through tone, writing, design, dialogue, and just be the general expression of your creative endeavors. And then we have the purging of old control dynamics, which is now you teach what you transmuted and you lead from resonance, not reactivity, which is a sign of it's a sign of growth and maturation, where you sort of I mean, that's good, Beans, but that is a lot more work than you and people observing you probably give it credit for. And I will caveat that credit statement by, you know, asserting the fact that that is an internal thing, that is a personal thing, and there should be no pressure, desire, or intention to wear that work on your sleeve. Not to say that you do, but just saying, like, a lot of people, I don't know, a lot of people carry a lot of ego for a lot of internal, I guess you could say, I don't want to say skills or like internal people carry a lot of like ego based around internal battles when they really shouldn't, you know? Like it's kind of like it's like a vibe of you know, you're supposed to have peace after that. You're not supposed to be like a dickhead that's just like, oh, I went through this internally. And it's just like, bro, it's an internal battle for a reason. You're supposed to conquer it and experience peace, not just be like a douche that's just like stunting on people because you feel a certain way, like as if you've accomplished something that was outside and not tangible, right? Like people conflate that all the time. And as someone who actually operates in a sport that facilitates that issue and observes it on a routine basis, like it's something that's kind of near and dear to me, and I take a lot of offense to people that don't do that internal work. And yes, I do automatically write them off as someone that is lesser than and I don't want to associate with, you know? So, but that's just a me thing. That's probably something that I shouldn't do, but it's like a natural thing in my brain of like, you're still stuck on that lesson. I don't want to associate with you, but then I, you know, express it in an egoic way to make it more entertaining to myself. Not saying it's good, but it's just what I do, right? So when it comes to Pluto and Aquarius, essentially like this voice of power is becoming pure frequency. Oh, right. This is why I explained that, of where it's like no yelling, no ego. It's just magnetism and acceptance of who you are, right? So we're getting to that. I'm actually about to start the all signs reading now. So does anybody have any questions before I start the all signs reading for Pluto and Aquarius? Drop your questions. I gotta get more tea. Gotta boil the water. You, Aries. Yeah, I do start in order, but I will lie to you and tell you I'll do it first. Yeah, there are more than just Scorpio risings. You feel me? But yeah, one of the things I was talking to my buddy about last night was because like I was talking about how my what the fuck was it? My yeah. Yeah, if you don't want to wait and you just want to talk about your stuff, just click that link. But yeah, anyways, what I was saying was I noticed that like some of my first videos on YouTube, which were basically like faceless copies just to farm watch time, which is kind of like what I'm doing right now, was like it was going good. What are you talking about, Cancer Moon? Is the moon in Cancer already? Sweet. Oh, wow, the moon's in Leo. Damn. I don't know where my mind was. But yeah, we noticed how the YouTube algorithm is favoring a lot of like older videos because of and because of like what was it? Just because of like all like the AI videos that are coming out right now, people just be wanting real shit, you know what I'm saying? So it's just like I don't know, I found that interesting. Cause it was like my old videos, which is like a meditation series. It was a Deepak Chopra meditation thing. So it was like farmed and like I put like new video and sound under it. Basically that entire meditation series is like it went like kind of up and then sideways for like 6 years, and now it just went straight up and it's like going crazy, and that is like the source of like all my watch time right now, which is cool because I'm close to the first layer of like monetizing lives where people can like donate and like gifts and like all that, which is like cool. But you know, like I said, I prefer you signing up here and doing a thing that provides actual value. But for people that don't see that and just value this, I ain't gonna stop you. You know what I'm saying? Like, man's likes online income. You feel me? But let me pour my tea and I'll do the all signs reading. But I just noticed that and I thought it was interesting. It's always interesting what pops up on Pluto Direct days. Thank you, Beans. Okay, so Aries rising. Let's start with that. So Aries rising, we are dealing with this in the 11th house. So essentially what we have for Aries rising is your voice disrupts, use it to pioneer. And this isn't really that anything that creative because it's like, bro, Aries has been, oh dude, you're born on the numerological day of wealth. That's pretty good. Anybody born on the 28th or has a strong 28 is going to be wealthy. Unlike an 8 who is in number 8, which is kind of like, you know, the infinity. So it's like they're up, they're down, they're up, they're down, they're up, they're down type of thing. So yeah, so essentially Aries is just going through the same lesson of what all Aries ascendants do, which is like they don't realize how emotionally attached they are to being a leader, and that will stop them from actually doing anything from an individual and personal creative path, right? So essentially what that looks like is they are blowing up on social media, right? And they're ignoring what they want to do, but what they actually want to do is completely different to what like they're gaining energy and attention for, right? So it's like they're gaining energy attention for something that has no substance, and then therefore it has no like there's no container, there's no spiritual container for it to be maintained, right? So it's like when your job is a marketer and you're not building something of value, you're building of something off of like cheap impulse. Eventually it will catch up to you and it won't be sustainable, and then your credibility is gone. So when it comes to Aries, essentially what they need to do is remember, thank you. Essentially what they need to do is they need to remember that Aries is just like, you know, it's like they gotta be an individual, right? That's like the whole point. But they're not doing it, so they're learning how to like they're learning the value of applying that skill that Pluto wants them to have with who they are. So that's what's going on. Well, you're gonna fucking learn at some point, so it's gonna hit you, and you're gonna enjoy it. Now, when it comes to the Taurus energies, ironically, you know, financial resurrection here. Zodiac signs and the actual study of astrology are two very different things, and you probably don't know enough about it to actually form that judgment. There you go. Appreciate it. Thanks for the subscribe. So when it comes to Taurus rising, essentially what we're dealing with is financial resurrection, and embodying wealth as art. So, yes, this is Frenzy. This is Western astrology. However, I do it very differently. To where it's like I actually apply the stars, because Western astrology is inherently not based on the stars. So I utilize it as the main base calculation, but then I apply the 88 constellations within it as well. However, right now I'm doing a very basic, I'm on Taurus rising right now. Go back if you want to see Aries rising. It's at 36 minutes. So yeah, essentially what we have going on with that is like right now I'm doing a very simple reading that doesn't really apply to the stars, but if you want to start the live over and see me talk about the stars, I talked about the fixed star Albireo of the Cygnus constellation. Now with Taurus rising, essentially they're dealing with this in the 10th house, so they're getting a resurgence of, you know, not being a kind of like nonchalant lazy person, where they are essentially what's going on with that is, you know, they're actually getting valued for like what they have to offer to the world, right? Because it's like when the 10th house is like looking at me, it's like, oh, you're the astrology guy, that's what you do. And then when, you know, if you're a mechanic, oh, you're a car guy. Like that's essentially the energy of the 10th house, of where it's like, you're the guy for this, you do this, this is what you do, cool, you know. So when it comes to that, essentially what we have going on with the energy of Taurus is like they are going to be seen on a broader stage, and the level of value that they have to offer to the world is going to be amplified. And that's pretty much it. Now Gemini. Gemini is dealing with this in the 9th house. So Gemini is transforming public perception through their message, right? So like I was saying before in the previous Gemini readings, Gemini was going through their mental archives and really expanding beyond the energy of just learning for learning's sake, right? So it's like they're moving up, they're moving on, they're growing. Whatchamacallit? I don't think he's a troll. I think he's over-explaining a point that I already read and didn't really find important to respond to. But yeah, so essentially what's going on with Gemini is like finally synthesizing all the information that they took and putting it out into a message of where it's like, instead of being like a hermit that just studies things, they are like a person that knows things, and they're like, oh, I know this, I do this, cool, you know? So yeah, and then people are gonna be like, wow, you're really smart, I could use that. And then now we're whatchamacallit? Yeah, for sure, dude, learn away. There's I mean, there's not really that much difference in what I'm explaining outside of underlying calculation is the only difference. So it's like when I say Gemini rising, to you that would still be Taurus rising. Not much different. Moving on to Cancer, because it's like Vedic and Western astrology is a 24-degree difference as of right now, and yeah. So Cancer rising is dealing with it in the 8th house, so they're having their faith reborn, and they're gaining power through emotional transparency, which is the first step of what I've been explaining for Cancer, of essentially just, you know, bro, just like build your fucking boundaries out of like love, peace, and acceptance rather than fear, uncertainty, and doubt, you know, because Cancer really struggles with where they kind of created their boundaries, because it was like, you know, they're still stuck on the same lesson of like, I only learned to create my boundary because I was in pain, and now I base them off of pain, and now I store that energy in my nervous system, and now I continuously repeat that process over and over again because that's the antenna for what you attract. Ooh, you know? That's what Cancer's doing. Now, Leo. Leo is dealing with this in the 7th house. Leo is essentially going through deep community healing, which is led through integrity, not ego, right? So it's like Leos have done a lot of shadow work. Leos have moved on from what they had going on, and now they're just, you know, moving up, moving on, expanding, doing this, doing that, all that, blah, 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 blah. Like, I don't know, it's kind of what I was talking to you, Beans, earlier about, like, you healing your Pluto and Capricorn issues and not really, like, displaying it out like you normally would, right? You know? Because it's like, it's an internal thing. Why should it be made external? You know? Like what is the point? What are you going to do with that? What are you going to apply with that? The only tangible point I could, like, offer to you is like using it as your own personal testimonial that could resonate with people for the purpose of sales or advancing whatever you have going on. Yeah, I mean, all transits have this deep of an effect in your chart. Pluto is essentially, Pluto is kind of like your grandpa or like your ancestors, like whispering like what you should do and how you should like expand your life. And like it's like you listen or you don't. Like you have a lot of time and it gets slightly louder, but then eventually it's gonna like punch you in the you should have made happen. This is something you should do, but you're not. So I gotta learn you now, you know? And it's just like I wanted you to take control on your own. I don't want to do this to you. And it's like per sign, it is equally as extensive as it would be to somewhere else, right? Hey dude, if I was monetized, I'd appreciate it. But I'm working on it. Anyways. So yeah, Leo, it's just like you're doing the healing. Like there's not really much to it. It's just you're doing the healing. It's an internal thing. Shine your light on where it is internally, but for external reasons, whatever, dude. Like you'll get over it. Don't be extra. Now Virgo. Virgo is dealing with a career upgrade through new communication systems. Hopefully they learned the lesson of what their internal communication should have been, which is just, you know, like, I don't know. Hopefully they're not like working for projects that no one asked what their help for, you know? So it's like now maybe they've had a better understanding of the community and the public, and now they're not moving on that like baseline energy of I can help, so I should. And it's like they're remembering no one asked, you know? It's like so now they're getting better at their own personal marketing. They're getting better at expressing their offers. They're getting better at putting out what they want. And here they are, you know? So with that, thank you. I appreciate it. Coconut oil and tea tree oil. Off topic, but interesting. I don't take it as that malicious, but whatever. But yeah, Virgo, that's pretty much it. You're getting a career upgrade by actually having reciprocation for whatever it is you want to do. Now Libra. Whatever, beans. Do you. That was funny. Anyways, Libra is essentially dealing with this in the 5th house, so it's all about wisdom. It's all about wisdom. Wisdom becomes visibility. So publish, teach, share. Essentially, like, whatchamacallit? That is indeed facts. That is indeed facts. Yeah. You ain't been here long enough, GI. It really gets annoying and out of hand. So yeah, essentially what we have going on with Libra rising is, like, I sort of see it as them creating a, like, some type of, like, online reference to what their standards are and how they view people should be acting. So it kind of, like, offloads that, like, need and also responsibility they place on themselves to, whatchamacallit, what? I gotta ignore this. So essentially it, like, places them in a space of where it's like they have more time, more energy, and they place it on everything else, right? So what they have going on with that is just, I don't know, Libras are going to be doing less work. They're going to have more of like their boundaries like publicly displayed, and people are going to be like, oh, maybe I should interact like that, or maybe I should be like use this as an example, or maybe they should be the boundaries and standards that I set for socialization as well as just general interaction, and maybe people use it as a message for life, right? Now, when we move on to Scorpio, I know people have been waiting for Scorpio as always. Scorpio is dealing with an emotional rebirth because they have Aquarius in their 4th house typically. So it's emotional rebirth through sacred dialogue, right? Because a lot of people ignore the fact that Scorpio ascendants have a similar like they have a similar gripe as Leo ascendants in a different way, because it's like their family upbringing was completely based on public perception, and like their family dynamics were based on public perception, and in the home it was a little bit cold, a little bit dry, and a little bit like, you know, this is what society expects from you, this is what you're doing, and it's not really like very warm and fuzzy, right? It's very cold. So when we talk about that, Scorpio is kind of recognizing like that's what they went through, and they're going through an emotional rebirth, and recognizing that like they can choose their family and they don't have to rely on the one they have, right? So it's like friends are the family you chose in a way. And they're really like deepening their connections and doing the things in that regard, right? Which is cool and phenomenal, and probably makes Scorpio ascendants much more agreeable in a way. But it's still like, you know, it's still like predicated on power in a subtle way, which is it's kind of like a trade-off, you know, where it's like, oh, I wish they learned this in a better way, but it's just like, hey man, it's the chart, you know. Pluto's gonna be doing something. Now, when we talk about Sagittarius. Okay, so with Sagittarius, they have this in the 3rd house. So essentially, their partner with power is collaboration and expansion. This is the tangible thing of what I actually put out for previous Sagittarius readings, which is essentially like, you know, it's like they were not ego tripping, they were optimism tripping, and they were like sniffing that optimism as if they were glue in the 1st grade. And essentially what they're realizing is that like their ideas, their visions, and their philosophies on certain things is a phenomenal thing to experience and a phenomenal opportunity to deal with. And essentially what they have going on is recognizing that whatchamacallit, yo, you gotta like chill out and grow up. Yeah, for sure. I will, Celeste. Sorry about that. Anyways, what was I saying? So, right, Sag Rising, essentially what I was saying is like they need to treat their optimism and find people to essentially like plant the seed of optimism in, so they can move up and move on. Whatchamacallit, for sure, I was going to get to it eventually. So yeah, so when it comes to the Sagittarius energy, essentially what it was is like they recognize that their seed of optimism will actually grow if they share it with someone else. And now that's like Pluto is really being like, hey, like you have good ideas. They feel great. They're good. What if it was manifested on the world? Okay, cool. Here's a person that's psyched on it too. Let them build it. And then there you go. You come back 6 months later. Maybe it's there. Maybe it's not. Maybe it takes longer. Who knows? You know? So that's pretty much what they're dealing with, of where they're recognizing that collaboration equals expansion, and they can actually do things and be like, you know, an energetic and idea-based venture capital fund that actually supports people to expand things. Now, when we come to Capricorn, so when we come to Capricorn, we're dealing with this in the 2nd house. So it's reconstruct your systems with heart. I don't really have any like insights or downloads for this at the moment. It's kind of just that, you know, like reconstruct your systems with heart, whatever that means, right? Like do things because you wanted to build them, because you thought they were cool or you thought they had value to society. That's about it. Now Aquarius. Aquarius as the rising sign. With Pluto having this, they're kind of moving on from the bullshit that used to be Aquarius, which was, you know, you're the architect of the new world order, but they kind of feel down right now because they're like, damn, like this is what we have going on. This is what we have. This is like, you know, like everybody's on our wave of how we interact and like kind of surf over the energies of societies. So essentially what we have going on with that is like they're recognizing that just because everybody is getting on their wave doesn't mean they're the ones that are the originators of the power and the energy that they expected, right? So essentially what that means is they are in a space where they can create the new dynamics of how people gain power through social dynamics, technology, and social media. And they're finally coming to that conclusion of like, oh, my power isn't gone, it's just beginning, da 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 da, you know? And yeah, that's I don't know, that's pretty much it. Now Pisces. The way like people get so I'll talk about that in a second. So Pisces, essentially they're dealing with this in the 12th house, which is making the mystical practical, embodying your teachings, right? Remembering that your subconscious dynamics and understanding of the emotional intelligence of the world is the power you hold, right? So essentially what it means is people who are of the Pisces rising energy are recognizing that the power that they have connected with the subtle emotional realm is essentially like, you know, there's a bit more to it. There's a bit more vibes to it. There's a bit more understanding to it. There's a bit more power to it. And like having the ability to share that with people, along with having the ability to, you know, allow that to grow and like whatnot, is a pretty huge opportunity that people really undervalue and don't exactly understand. So when we talk about that and we actually experience that, you know, in this way of the Pisces energy, they are essentially like realizing the value that they can actually apply when they really share the energies of just opportunity in general, right? You know, so it's kind of like they hold a lot of power by being able to share their knowledge and understanding of how your subconscious emotional connection to the collective field is valuable to you, right? So in more direct terms, what that means is a lot of people need whatchamacallit, a lot of people need the knowledge of the emotions in your body very likely aren't yours, you know? So essentially what that means is people don't know that. People got to grow up beyond that, and people got to expand that, right? So basically, what we got going on with that is people got to learn. Pisces has the power to share. It's pretty much it. Now, whatchamacallit? So that's pretty much it. Now for the Q&A, I believe, whatchamacallit, Celeste wanted me to go over. It's all good, Beans. Don't worry about it. Yes, I'm speaking English and not Urdu. What you want me to do about that? Okay, so Celeste wanted me to go over Libra risings. Essentially what Libra risings are dealing with is dealing with in the 5th house, so they're coming up with creative ways to offload the rules that they want to implement into the world in regards to socialization while offloading their responsibility, right? So it's just like, if you're noticing someone is dealing with some type of specific mental ailment that is putting them down a wrong path, instead of like fully involving yourself into their whole issues and boundary issues, you are I'm doing well, thanks for asking. Instead of involving yourself, you're probably referring them to a YouTube channel of a therapist that specializes in that issue, right? For example, it could be recovering of a covert narcissistic parent and understanding the subtleties and knowing that you're not crazy and you just send them a YouTube channel instead of dropping everything you have to involve yourself in it, right? So it's like gaining more power over socialization and expectations and boundaries that people have, and reclaiming your time and not just like involving yourself in everything, like this whole, you know, stupid women without purpose on TikTok for taking down that person on the internet was, where it was like 20% police work and 80% saying you don't have purpose in life and you're bored, in other words. So things like that, right? Yeah, so it's delegation, but specifically delegation for people to improve the way you want them to improve, but without you sacrificing everything it is you're working for, you know? So yeah, that's pretty much it. Anybody else got any questions on Pluto Direct in Aquarius? All right. If y'all got no questions, have fun, enjoy it, and bye.